Can I talk to you about the fear you don't really admit? Not the big dramatic fear you post about. I'm talking about the quiet one. The one that sits in the back of your mind when you think about starting, speaking up, applying, asking, dreaming bigger. I want to talk to you directly, personally, honestly. Not at you, not over you, not past you. Because you didn't click on this for noise. You didn't come here for generic hype and pretty words. You came because something in you knows there is more, and something in you keeps pulling back every time you get close. You call it timing, you call it wisdom, you call it being realistic. But underneath those reasonable words, there is fear. Fear of failing publicly, fear of wasting time, fear of being judged, fear of confirming that secret suspicion that maybe you're not enough. Say that again in your heart. Not enough. That phrase has been running your life more than you realize. I need you to hear this. You are not lazy. You are not broken. You are not just unmotivated. Psychologists like Daniel Kahneman tell us that most people fear loss twice as much as they value gain. That means your brain is wired to protect you, to keep you safe, to keep you small. And fear has learned how to sound smart, how to sound mature, how to sound like it's just looking out for you. But this isn't just about fear in general. This is about ambition, the kind of ambition that feels God breathed, purpose driven, the idea you can't shake, the book, the business, the ministry, the move, the conversation that could change your life. You feel it spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and yet somehow, year after year, it gets delayed, postponed, downsized. You tell yourself one day, you tell yourself when things calm down, you tell yourself when I'm more confident. But most people wait for fear to disappear before they act, and that's exactly why they stay stuck. Faith is not the absence of fear. Faith is choosing to walk anyway. Things have a way of working out when you move with faith, determination, and belief, even while your hands are shaking. What I want to share with you today is not a polished motivational speech. This is not about pretending you're fearless. This is a late night talk to your soul. This is a sermon whispered straight into the place where you've been negotiating with fear and calling it wisdom. Are you ready? Because if you stay with me, if you lean in and let yourself be honest, you are not going to look at your fears or your future the same way again. We're going to expose how fear has been writing your story, and then we're going to start rewriting it, step by step. Let's go. So let me say this very clearly. This is not another hype video, not another 5-minute emotional spike that makes you want to run through a wall. Until the first email, the first bill, the first problem hits, and you're right back where you started. I want to talk to you about why that keeps happening and why today has to be different. You know the cycle. You click a video, the music swells, the voice is intense. You feel chills, you feel tears, you feel like, this is it, I'm changing everything. And then real life walks back into the room. The fear you never dealt with quietly sits back down in the driver's seat. Same habits, same choices, same silence. And afterward, you feel worse, not better. Because now you're not just afraid, you're ashamed that you're still afraid. I need you to hear this. You're not broken because motivation fades. You are not weak because a clip didn't fix your life. Those quick hits were never designed to confront the roots. They were designed to stir your feelings, not rewire your vision. And if fear is still running the show, in the dark, no amount of light for 60 seconds on a screen is going to change the script. Here it is. This conversation is not about pretty words. This is not about me sounding powerful while you stay the same. This is about changing how you see fear, how you see ambition, and how you see God's hand on your story. Not just mentally, not just emotionally, spiritually, down where your deepest beliefs live, where your confidence either rises or collapses before you even take a step. Think about it like this: fear has been ghostwriting your life. It has been choosing what you apply for, who you talk to, how honest you are, what dreams you quietly bury. You sign your name on the page, but fear picked the plot. Today's about taking the pen back, not by yourself, not in your own limited strength, but with God sitting at the table, co-authoring the next chapters with you. Pattern interrupt. I'm not asking, what do you want to do? I'm asking, who are you going to let rate the next 5 years of your life? Because what you build, who you become, what you regret or rejoice over, when you look back, it's all being shaped right now by whether you let this just be more noise or you let it sink in and rearrange you. Studies tell us most people regret the chances they never took more than the failures they lived through. People fear loss almost twice as much as they value gain, so they stay small, stay safe, stay stuck. But things have a way of working out when you walk with faith, determination, and honest action in the face of that fear. Not when fear disappears, when you stop obeying it. So this is not about getting you hyped for a moment. This is about helping you see that quiet, reasonable sounding fear for what it really is, and then showing you how to move differently with God. In the next part, we're going to expose the specific ways fear has been speaking in your life and how to answer it with a new kind of confidence. Stay with me. So before we go any further, I need you to do something with me. Not later, not while you're answering a text. Right now, in this moment, I need you to decide how you're going to show up for this. Because you can watch this like background noise, or you can receive it like a conversation that might change the way you walk into the rest of your life. I want to talk to you like it's just you and me in a quiet room, and God is here too, speaking between the words. For that to happen, I need you to give this your full attention and your honest openness. Not half listening, not scrolling, just here. Are you ready? If you can, put the other tabs away. Let the notifications wait. Take a breath. This isn't about me needing views. This is about you giving yourself a sacred pause so your faith, your confidence, your determination can actually be rebuilt, not just entertained for a few minutes. And when I say openness, I'm not talking about something shallow. I'm talking about layered, real openness, mind open, heart open, spirit open. Mind open means you're willing to hear some ideas that might challenge how you've explained your life to yourself. Not just what happened, but what it meant. Heart open means you're willing to feel, to let old disappointment, old embarrassment, old fear rise up for a second instead of pushing it down again, so it can finally be healed. And spirit open? Spirit open means you are willing to let God speak through this. Not at you, not over you, not past you, to you. It means you're willing to believe that maybe, just maybe, things have a way of working out when you stop hardening your spirit and start listening. I want you to picture a dark room. You've been in there so long, your eyes adjusted. You can move around. You don't bump into every chair anymore. And a part of you has started to call that darkness normal. Then someone cracks the door, just a little, not wide open, just enough for a thin line of light to sneak in and cut across the floor. Here it is. That small opening changes everything. The furniture didn't move, the walls didn't shift, but now you can see differently. That's what this openness is. I'm not asking you to rip the door off the hinges. I'm asking you to crack it, to let just enough light in that how you see yourself begins to shift, how you walk into rooms begins to shift, how you carry your own name begins to shift. If you're willing to do that, I want you to make a little commitment with me. Nothing big, just between you, me, and God. On the inside of you, or even under your breath. I want you to say it. I'm open. Say that again if you have to. I'm open. Say it out loud if you can. Feel how different that is from passive watching. This is you cracking the door. This is you saying, fear doesn't get the final word in how I listen anymore. Hold that openness, because next we're going to walk straight into the specific lies fear has been whispering in your life, and we're going to let that new light show you another way. Hold that openness, because before we go any further into fear or ambition or strategy, I want to talk to you about something deeper. Before you change your habits, before you set another goal, there has to be a belief planted, a core belief, a seed, not just a nice quote on your phone background, a belief that is going to shape the way you hear everything else I say today, a belief that steadies you when your hands are shaking, a belief that keeps you from quitting when the results are slow, a belief that makes fear lose its grip, not because the fear disappears, but because something stronger is now holding you. Are you ready? Here it is. Things have a way of working out. That's it. That's the line. Simple, soft, almost too familiar. And I know what you might be thinking right now. I've heard that before. People say that when they don't know what else to say. But I need you to hear it a different way. Not as a cliche, as a spiritual anchor, as a decision about how you are going to walk through your life. Things have a way of working out when you walk with faith, determination, and confidence. Not passive hoping, not sitting back waiting for the universe to fix everything. Faith that moves your feet, determination that gets you back up, confidence that says, even if I fall, I am not finished. This belief is a seed, and like any seed, it does not look like what it will become. You put it in the dark, you cover it. For a while, nothing seems to happen. That's where most people give up. But faith is watering the seed when you see no sprout. Faith is talking to yourself differently when your circumstances haven't changed yet. And that seed has enemies, weeds, the weed of doubt. What if this never works? The weed of comparison. They're already ahead of me. Why even try? The weed of past disappointment. Last time I trusted, I got hurt. These weeds look small, but they choke roots. Not just mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I need you to start noticing those weeds, not agreeing with them. Not at you, not over you, not past you. You meet them with that one line. Things have a way of working out. Say that again in your heart. When loss feels louder than gain, this is. When loss feels louder than gain, this is the refrain we will return to. The steady drumbeat underneath every fear we expose next. Stay with me, because in the next part, we're going to let fear speak line by line, and then we're going to answer it with this seed you just planted. So when I say things have a way of working out, I know something in you flinches. There's a part of you that hears that line and immediately whispers, not for me, not like that, not this time. I want to talk to you right there in that quiet objection. Because you don't just hear a phrase, you hear memories. You hear overdue bills stacked on the kitchen table while you're counting coins and pretending you're not scared. You hear the business idea, the book, the ministry, the dream that never took off, even though you prayed, even though you tried, even though you showed up until you were exhausted. You remember the relationship that shattered, the one you thought was your future, your family, your safe place. You remember the doctor's office, the health scare, that moment when the room went silent and all you could hear was your own heartbeat pounding in your ears. You remember scrolling your phone, watching people your age, younger than you, looking like they are 5 chapters ahead while you feel stuck on page 1. And then somebody looks at you and says, "It's okay. Things have a way of working out." And it lands like a cliche. It lands like something people say when they don't know what else to say. It lands like a sentence you can only afford to speak when you're not the one in the fire, when it's not your heart on the line, your bank account in the red, your body in pain. If that's you, I need you to hear me clearly. Your pain is real. Your disappointment is real. Your confusion is real. God is not brushing past it, and neither am I. Every tear you cried in the dark, every night you stared at the ceiling asking why, every time you showed up and it still fell apart. He saw it, not at you, not over you, not past you, right there with you. I am not asking you to pretend it didn't hurt. I am not asking you to call failure a blessing before your heart is ready. Faith is not denial. Confidence is not amnesia. You are allowed to grieve what you lost and still believe there is more to be written. Here it is. What if the story isn't finished yet? What if the chapter you keep using as proof that it never works out for me was never meant to be the ending, just the middle? What if fear has been taking that one season, that breakup, that bankruptcy, that rejection letter, and holding it up like a verdict? See, this is why you should never risk big again. Because fear does that. It builds a case. It gathers your worst days as evidence. It points to the unpaid bill, the failed launch, the unanswered prayer and says, "Remember this, don't you dare try again." And slowly, quietly, you stop applying, you stop asking, you stop dreaming. Not because God said no, because fear said, "Stay safe." But what if things have a way of working out doesn't mean everything goes back to what it was? What if it means God can take even this delay, this loss, this detour, and weave it into a different kind of good than you imagine? Not always fast, not always easy, but real. Are you ready? In a moment, we're going to redefine what working out actually looks like. And when you see it, fear is going to lose one of its strongest arguments. So let's redefine it right now. Because things have a way of working out by itself is not enough. On its own, it sounds passive, like you just sit on the couch, cross your fingers, and somehow life is going to fix itself while you scroll and wait. That's not faith. That's not confidence. That's not determination. That's wishing. And wishing will not carry you through a storm. I want to talk to you about the full version, the real version, the version that actually changes how you walk through your life. Here it is. The full version, the version I need you to write on the walls of your heart, is this: things have a way of working out when I move with faith, when I stay with determination, and when I stand in confidence. Say that again in your mind. Let it interrupt the old script that said, "Maybe it'll just work out somehow," and replace it with, "No, I'm going to walk this out with God." Faith, determination, confidence. Not 3 random words, 3 parts of a covenant. Faith means you trust God and the unseen. You take the next right step when you can only see that one step. You remember that God has plans for you, even when the numbers, the timing, the circumstances do not make sense. Not blind optimism, a grounded belief that God is working even when you can't measure it yet. Determination is different. Determination is staying in motion when it's hard, when you're tired, when fear is loud. It's sending the application after 3 rejections. It's having the hard conversation you've been avoiding. It's trying again after you failed, because you understand what research keeps showing us. People who see failure as feedback, not a verdict, go further and grow faster. And confidence? Confidence is how you carry yourself, even when you're scared. Not pretending you're never afraid. Walking anyway, speaking anyway, showing up anyway. It's that quiet, steady posture that says, I belong in the room because God sent me here, even when your hands are shaking. Listen to me, this belief is not a magic trick. It's a partnership. Your steps plus God's guidance. Your effort plus His grace. Not at you, not over you, not past you, but with you. When you move, He directs. When you show up, He opens doors you couldn't have planned, and He closes some you would have begged for, but didn't need. I need you to start internalizing this full version today. Picture it written on the walls of your heart, on the mirror you look into every morning, echoing in your mind when fear starts whispering again. Because fear will whisper. But when it does, you're going to have a new sentence ready. And in the next part, we're going to get very practical about how you walk this out when everything in you wants to run back to safety. Hey, I want to talk to you right now about something simple but powerful. We're not just going to think this belief, we're going to speak it. Because what you say shifts the atmosphere around you, and it shifts the atmosphere inside you. Your brain is always listening to you. Your spirit is always registering your words. Not just what other people say about you, not just what they spoke over you years ago. What you say when you hear your own voice speak life into the very place fear has been sitting. Your nervous system, your mind, your heart start to line up with a new story. That's why this matters. So I need you to lean in for a moment. If you can, I want you to whisper this with me. If you're alone, say it out loud. If you're around people, say it under your breath. Are you ready? Here it is. Things have a way of working out when I move with faith, when I stay with determination, and when I stand in confidence. Say that again, slower this time. Let every word land. Things have a way of working out when I move with faith, when I stay with determination, and when I stand in confidence. You are not just repeating a nice quote. You are retraining a fearful mind. You are answering the old sentence that said, it's not going to work out for me. Now we're going to make it personal, because it's not just about vague things out there in the distance. This is about you in real moments, on real days, in real rooms. I need you to speak it like this. When I walk into rooms, things have a way of working out. When I make decisions, things have a way of working out. When I carry my name, things have a way of working out. Feel that shift, not just someday, not just for other people, for you, today. This is how you start to confront that fear of failure that has been quietly shaping your choices, making you overestimate the risk and underestimate the God who walks with you. And listen, this is not a license to sit back. This is not, I'll just wait and see and hope life rescues me. No, this is an active declaration. This is you saying, I will move, I will show up, I will take the next faithful step, and I trust that as I walk, God walks with me. Faith is not avoiding fear. Faith is walking anyway. Think of this moment as a covenant, a holy agreement between you and your future self, between you and your calling, between you and God. You just promise not to let fear write the final draft of your story. You just agreed to partner with grace, not with panic. Hold that, because next we're going to talk about how you keep this covenant on the hard days, when fear starts arguing back and the room feels bigger than your confidence. Hold that covenant in your hands for a second. Feel the weight of it, because what you just declared is not a cute affirmation. It's the foundation. It's the ground we are going to walk on for the rest of this conversation. You just said fear does not get the final draft. That belief is the frame around everything that's coming next. Not just for the good days, for the confusing days, the lonely nights, the moments when you're staring at the ceiling wondering, is any of this really going to work out for me? So here's where we're going. I want to talk to you about 3 pillars that hold you up when fear starts arguing back: faith, determination, and confidence under fire. Not theory, not vague inspiration. Real, practical, spiritual muscle you can use when life feels like too much. First, we're going to go deep on faith, not wishful thinking, not pretending it doesn't hurt. Faith when life is hard and unclear. Faith when you don't see the sprout, but you keep watering the seed. We're going to talk about trusting that things have a way of working out when you take the next right step, even when that's the only step you can see. Then we're going to talk about determination, the kind you need when you're tired, when you're tempted to quit, when the numbers don't add up and the doors keep closing. We'll look at why your brain fears loss more than it loves gain, why you overestimate the risk of trying and underestimate the cost of staying the same. And we'll build a stubborn, holy kind of perseverance that keeps you moving anyway. After that, we'll deal with confidence under fire. Not when everyone claps for you, when they doubt you, when you doubt yourself, when old voices say, people like you don't make it, and shame tries to drag you back. We're going to rebuild how you talk to you, so your inner voice becomes a coach, not a critic. And I need you to hear this. We are not going to stay in the clouds. We're going into money stress, into relationships that feel fragile, into your career, your calling, your business ideas, your ministry. Those late night moments when you're replaying every mistake and fear is the loudest thing in the room. This is not a quick motivational hit. This is a long, honest sermon to your soul. We're going to sit with the hard questions. We're going to tell the truth. We're going to practice a new way to walk. By the time we're done, you will know something different about yourself. You will know that with God, you have what it takes to stop letting fear write your story and to start walking out your ambition with courage. Not someday, today. Are you ready? Let's go. So I want to talk to you about something very specific. I want you to think about where you are right now in your life, not where you hope to be 5 years from now, not to where you were back when you had more fire or had more time. Right now, today, in this moment, where are you? I'm not asking for the polished answer you give other people. I'm asking for the inventory you give yourself when the lights are off and it's just you and God. This is a season, not a sentence. Seasons move, seasons turn, seasons change, but they are still real while you're in them. So what season are you actually in? Some of you are in a season of momentum. Doors are opening. People are calling. Ideas are flowing. You're seeing little confirmations that your faith, your confidence, your determination have not been in vain. If that's you, I celebrate that. But I also need you to hear this. Do not get comfortable. Do not let comfort turn into complacency, and complacency turn into quiet fear of losing what you have. Others of you are in a dry season, a stuck season, a nothing is moving, nothing is breaking, everything feels on pause. season where you've taken steps toward your dream, but the dream still feels miles and miles away, where you pray and you plan and you push, and it still feels like you're walking in mud. If that's you, this message is especially for you. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are in a season, not a life sentence. Here it is. No matter what season you're in, fear is trying to negotiate with you. Quietly, logically, respectably. I need you to locate it right now. Where is fear the loudest in your life? Is it in your finances, where you keep playing small because loss feels twice as scary as potential gain? Is it in relationships, where you avoid the hard conversation that could actually heal you? Is it in your career decisions, your creativity, your spiritual obedience? Psychologists tell us most people regret the chances they never took more than the failures they experienced. Things have a way of working out when you walk with faith, but fear will convince you that staying still is safer than stepping out. Say that again in your heart. Staying still feels safer, but it costs more than you can see today. As you listen, you're going to start to see patterns, little flashbacks, moments where fear sounded reasonable and you let it choose for you. Times you called it wisdom, but really it was worry dressed up in nice language. That awareness is not to shame you. That awareness is the first step to taking your power back, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Because in a moment, we're going to do something with what you just found. We're going to confront that fear at the exact point it's been running your life. And that's where everything starts to shift. So when you look back at that list you just wrote, I want to talk to you about something very important. You keep calling yourself lazy. You keep saying, I'm unmotivated. I just can't get it together. But what if that's not the truth? What if you're not lazy at all? You're just tired from wrestling fear all day in your own mind. Not just tired in your body, tired in your confidence, tired in your belief, tired in your faith about your own future. Because every time you even think about moving toward that dream, there's a courtroom in your head. Fear is the loudest lawyer in the room, and it sounds so reasonable you don't even recognize it as fear. Here it is. Fear almost never walks in and says, I'm afraid. Fear dresses up. Fear puts on a suit and calls itself logic, responsibility, maturity. It gives you 10 very good reasons not to start, not to risk, not to speak. And if you're honest, some of those reasons have sounded holy, wise, even protective. I'm not applying for that job yet. The timing isn't right. I should wait until things settle down. I'm not posting my work. It's not excellent enough yet. I don't want to put out something less than my best. I'm not having that conversation. I don't want drama. I'm just trying to keep the peace. Do you hear it? On the surface, that sounds careful, thoughtful. But underneath, your heart is shaking. Let me interrupt you for a second, because this is not just spiritual, it's also psychological. Research from Daniel Kahneman on loss aversion shows that people fear losses about twice as much as they value gains. Twice as much. So your brain is wired to overreact to what you might lose and undercelebrate what you might gain. No wonder fear's logic keeps winning. So when you say, I'm just lazy, I need you to slow down. Is it laziness? Or is it your nervous system trying to protect you from a risk it has exaggerated in your mind? Is it a lack of motivation? Or is it a lack of safety around the idea of failing, being seen, being judged? That's a very different battle. You don't shame your way out of fear. You walk your way through it gently, consistently, with determination. Are you ready? I want you to imagine, just for a moment, that fear is not allowed to make the final decision this year. It can talk, it can raise its hand, but it does not get the last vote. If fear wasn't part of the equation, what would you be working toward this year? Say that again in your mind. Let that question sit with you like a mirror. Because in the next part, we're going to take that answer and start building a different pattern, one small step at a time. So you can see with your own eyes that things have a way of working out when you move anyway. Hey, I want to talk to you about something fear does that is so quiet, so polite, you almost never catch it. It rarely shouts, stop. It rarely says, don't dream. It just leans in and whispers, be realistic. Tone it down. Don't get your hopes up. On the surface, that sounds wise. It sounds mature. It sounds like you're finally growing up. But underneath, what's really happening is this. Your ambition is getting downsized, one tiny compromise at a time. Not from the life you hate to the life you love. From the life you're called to, down to the life you can tolerate. You know how it goes. You feel that nudge to start the business, to build something of your own. Fear doesn't say, absolutely not. Fear says, just stay at the job a little longer. It's safer. The benefits are good. Why risk it? You feel the urge to write the book. Fear doesn't say, you're not allowed. It says, just think about it for now. Take more notes. Wait for the perfect time. That big, faith-filled vision you had, it shifts from aiming high to aiming safe. From how far can I go to how do I not lose what I have? Psychologists call it loss aversion. You're wired to fear loss about twice as much as you value gain. So fear plays that card every day. It magnifies the possible loss. It minimizes the possible growth. And when you keep saying yes to that voice, something subtle happens. On the outside, your life can look stable, responsible, even successful. The bills are paid. The schedule is predictable. People might even praise you for being steady. But on the inside, it feels tight. It feels like you're living in a room that's two sizes too small for your soul. That's the suffocation I'm talking about. Not dramatic chaos, quiet suffocation. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You wake up and think, I should be grateful. But underneath that gratitude, there's a low ache, a sense that you shrank yourself to fit a story fear approved. Here it is. Fear doesn't just block your actions, it rewrites your identity. At first, it says, don't launch the business. Then, it upgrades the script. You're not that type of person who launches businesses. At first, it says, don't speak up. Then it becomes, you're just not a leader. Say that again in your mind. That's identity talk, not wisdom. Over time, the more you agree, the more you believe, that's who you really are. Not bold, not creative, not called, just practical, just realistic. But that's not what God said about you. So I need you to pause with me right now. I need you to name one dream you quietly shrank or shelved because fear made the smaller path sound wiser. Say it out loud if you can, because in the next part, we're going to walk straight into that place and start rebuilding your faith and your confidence. So you can see again that things have a way of working out when you stop letting fear write your story. You named that dream. You felt the sting of what fear talked you out of. Now I want to talk to you about the only thing strong enough to stand in the middle of that fear and not move. Faith, not blind optimism, not everything will magically be fine. Faith is a settled trust in God's character and God's presence, especially when you do not know how the story is going to end. It's confidence in who walks with you more than certainty about what the outcome is going to be. Fear loves outcomes. Fear is a storyteller. It plays movies in your mind on repeat. Public humiliation. What if I try and everyone laughs? Financial ruin. What if I step out and lose everything? Rejection, abandonment. What if they leave when they see the real me? It doesn't whisper, it narrates. Scene after scene of the worst case. Here it is. Fear tells you the story of what if it all falls apart? But faith tells you the story of even if it's hard, God is still here. Even if it's messy, He is still working. Not just when it's clean, not just when it's impressive, not just when you win. In the confusion, in the delay, in the disappointment, God says, I will never leave you or forsake you. Psychologists call fear's style loss aversion. We feel potential loss almost twice as strongly as potential gain. So your brain exaggerates the danger and minimizes the possibility. That's why your fear sounds so reasonable. Be realistic. Play it safe. Don't embarrass yourself. But research on resilience and optimism shows something powerful. People who believe setbacks are temporary and specific recover faster and keep going longer than people who believe setbacks are permanent and personal. Faith aligns with that. Faith says, this is a season, not a sentence. This failure is feedback, not a final identity. Say that again in your heart. Feedback, not identity. When you trust that God is still writing, you can treat the setback as a chapter, not the whole book. I need you to see this. Faith does not mean you never feel afraid. Jesus sweat drops of blood in the garden. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is movement in the presence of fear because you trust a greater voice. Faith says, I feel the fear, but I'm going to walk anyway because God can redeem even what doesn't go as planned. So what if the point is not that you always win, but that nothing is wasted? What if the very thing you're afraid to attempt is the place God wants to show you that things have a way of working out when you walk with Him? In the next part, we're going to get practical and confront the exact stories fear has been telling you and replace them line by line with a different script. So let's get real, because this is where a lot of dreams quietly die. It's a one thing to talk about purpose. It's another thing when the rent is due on the 1st, the card payment hits on the 15th, and your kid is looking at you asking, what's for dinner? You feel that? That pull between calling and responsibility. I want to talk to you if you've ever looked at your ambition and thought, is this irresponsible? You feel something in you that wants to build, create, launch, write, serve. But then you open your banking app. You look at your parents who sacrificed. You think about your children who depend on you. And suddenly the dream starts to look like a luxury you can't afford. Now hear me. This is important. Some people take the language of faith and turn it into an excuse for recklessness. I quit everything, God will figure it out, with no plan, no counsel, no willingness to work. That is not what I'm talking about. Faith is not abandoning wisdom. Faith is not refusing to show up for the people God already trusted you with. But fear loves to swing you to the other extreme. Not just caution, not just planning, a full shutdown. You start using being responsible as a shield to never take one step toward what God put in your heart. You tell yourself, I'd love to, but I can't. I have bills, I have a family, I have a job. And slowly, quietly, you let fear call itself maturity. Here it is. You are not lazy. You are not unmotivated. Your fear is just really good at sounding reasonable. It will quote your obligations back to you. It will exaggerate the risk because your brain is wired to feel a possible loss almost twice as strongly as a possible gain. So you stay in a life that is safe on paper, but empty in your spirit. What if there is a middle path, a faith-based, grounded way, where you honor your commitments and still honor your calling, where you keep working that job, but you also start the side project. You learn at night. You network on your lunch break. You test the idea on a small scale before you ever jump. That's faith too, not just big leaps. Quiet, consistent, incremental steps. Thoughtful, prayerful, intentional. You say, God, I'm going to walk, and I trust you to open what needs to open and close what needs to close. Things have a way of working out when you move like that. Say that again in your heart. Things have a way of working out when I move with faith and wisdom, not at the speed of your fear, not at the speed of other people's opinions, at the speed of obedience. Are you ready to stop waiting for perfect conditions and start with what you have, where you are today? Because in the next part, we're going to break down how to test your dream in real life without blowing up your life, and how to hear the difference between God's guidance and fear's excuses. Let's go. Fear as a compass. Why? What scares you might be pointing you to purpose. You just heard me say, we're going to test your dream in real life. Now I want to talk to you about the one thing that's going to try to shut that down before you even start. Fear. Not the dramatic fear you see in movies, the quiet fear, the reasonable fear, the fear that sounds like maybe later, and who do you think you are? Here it is. Fear is not always a stop sign. Sometimes fear is a highlighter. Sometimes the very thing that makes your chest tighten, your voice shake, your hands sweat is the exact area where you are called to grow, to lead, to step out with faith and confidence. Not because you feel ready, but because God is ready to meet you there. You live most of your life inside what we call a comfort zone. Familiar routines, predictable conversations, places where you know the script, safe but small. Ambition does not live there. Ambition lives just outside that line, where the outcome is not guaranteed, where you might be seen, where you might fail. And that is exactly where fear gets loud. Not because you're weak, but because your brain is wired to protect you from loss. Psychologists call it loss aversion. You feel the possibility of losing twice as strongly as the possibility of gaining. So your mind exaggerates the risk, minimizes the reward, and you stay put. But I need you to hear this. Comfort is not the same as peace. Sometimes comfort is just fear wearing pajamas. Research on exposure-based therapy shows something powerful. When people repeatedly face the situations they fear, public speaking, flying, social situations, the anxiety usually shrinks over time. Not because the situation changed, because their brain learned, I can survive this. Action shrinks fear. Avoidance feeds it. Say that again in your spirit. Action shrinks fear. So I want you to pause with me right now. I want you to think about your own life. Where are you choosing safe and stuck over scared but growing? Is it a conversation you keep dodging, a project you keep postponing, a room you keep talking yourself out of walking into? Be honest, not with me, with you. Start noticing the patterns. The same kind of meeting that makes you want to disappear. The same kind of opportunity you always don't have time for. The same kind of relationship risk you keep avoiding. What if those are not random? What if those are the very places God keeps nudging you toward? Because your voice, your gift, your presence is needed there. Things have a way of working out when you stop treating fear as your boss and start treating it as information, a signal, a compass. In the next part, we're going to get even more practical and map out how to take small, real steps into those scary spaces so you can build proof, not just hype, that you can walk through fear and come out stronger. Let's go. So let's go a layer deeper. You've treated fear as a compass, but I want to talk to you about why that fear feels so heavy in the first place. Why does "what if I fail" sound louder than "what if this changes everything"? There's a psychologist named Daniel Kahneman who spent years studying how we make decisions. Here it is. He found that people feel losses about twice as strongly as they feel gains. Twice. Losing $100 hurts more than winning $100 feels good. Not just a little more, way more. And that same wiring is running in the background of your ambition. Think about what that means for you. When you think about starting the business, applying for the promotion, sharing your art, your brain doesn't first picture the gain. It doesn't see the growth, the success, the fulfillment. It rushes to the loss, the embarrassment if people talk, the money if it doesn't work, the status if you look foolish. The potential loss feels heavier than the potential gain, so stay safe starts to sound like wisdom. Not just comfort, not just fear, fake wisdom. Your mind whispers, be realistic. Don't get your hopes up. Don't risk what you have. And on the surface, it sounds mature. It sounds responsible. But underneath that loss aversion is quietly suffocating your long-term dreams, your calling, your assignment. You end up trading decades of purpose for a few minutes of relief. I need you to hear this. There is nothing wrong with you because you feel that pull. You are not weak. You are not broken. You are human. Your nervous system was built to keep you alive, not to make you bold. Of course, you overestimate the danger. Of course, you replay worst-case scenarios. That's your brain trying to protect you mentally, emotionally, spiritually. But protection can become a prison. When every risk feels like a cliff, you stop climbing. When every no feels like a verdict on your worth, you stop asking. When every stumble feels final, you stop walking. Say that again in your heart. My fear is human, but it is not my master. Psychology explains the pattern. It shows you the wiring. It names the bias. But faith is what empowers you to choose differently. Faith says, yes, I see the loss, but I also see a God who is bigger than my worst case scenario. Faith says, I might fall, but I will not be forsaken. Faith says, things have a way of working out when I walk with God, not just with my fear. Are you ready for this next part? Because now we're going to confront the most dangerous question your fear keeps asking, the one that has been secretly steering your life without you even noticing. That question is this: if God is really with me, why isn't this working? You don't always say it out loud, but you feel it when you pray, you fast, you knock on doors, and they still don't open. You feel it when you do everything right, and the timeline keeps stretching further and further than you ever imagined. I want to talk to you right now if you're tired. Tired of praying for the job and watching someone else get it. Tired of believing for the relationship while yours falls apart. Tired of asking for healing, for breakthrough, for a chance. And it feels like heaven is quiet and the earth is locked. That hurts, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. In that pain, quiet questions show up. Did I hear God wrong? Am I not enough? Maybe this dream isn't from Him at all. Those questions don't shout, they whisper. But they are powerful because they start to rewrite your identity. Not just, this didn't work, but I don't work, I'm broken, I'm forgotten. And when you believe that, fear doesn't have to yell to stop you. It just has to nod. Here it is. Not every no is a rejection of you. Not every not yet is a verdict on your calling. Sometimes it is protection. Sometimes it is preparation. Sometimes God is closing a door you keep begging for, because on the other side of that door is a weight your character is not ready to carry yet. Not punishment, protection. Let me interrupt this for a second. What if the delay is not about your value, but about your capacity? What if God is not only answering your prayer, He is also answering prayers you haven't prayed yet, lining up people and places and timing you can't see? Things have a way of working out, but not always on your schedule. Researchers who study resilience have found something powerful. People who believe setbacks are temporary and specific, not permanent and personal, are far more likely to get back up, adjust, and eventually succeed. When you say, "This season is hard, this door closed, this attempt failed," instead of, "I am a failure, nothing ever works," you protect your confidence and your faith. So I need you to shift the story you're telling yourself. Delayed answers are not proof that prayer doesn't work. Delayed answers are not evidence that your destiny expired. Delayed answers mean the story isn't finished. The chapter you're in is not the whole book. God is still writing. Say it out loud. My delay is not my denial. Say that again. Let that sentence walk with you into the next season, because next we're going to talk about how to move while you wait, how to build a faith that acts even when the outcome is still unseen. If delay is not denial, then the question becomes, what do you do while you wait? You don't just sit there, you don't just freeze. I want to talk to you about a different way to move. Not with one giant all or nothing leap, but with small, holy experiments. You do not have to bet your whole life on one decision. Hear me. That pressure you feel, like if you choose wrong once, everything is over. That is fear talking, not God. God often trains your confidence through tiny, reversible steps, through little acts of faith where you can learn, adjust, and try again without destroying your whole world. Here it is. Instead of waiting for certainty, you run experiments with God. You say, Lord, I'm going to take this one step. Walk with me in this. Not a lifetime contract. One step, one test, one seed in the ground to see what He does with it. Maybe for you, it's starting a tiny side project, not quitting your job tomorrow. 1 hour a week where you write, design, coach, bake, record, create. 1 hour to test. What happens when I actually honor this desire you put in me? Maybe it's having one honest conversation you've been avoiding, not fixing the whole relationship in a day. One phone call, one coffee, one moment of truth instead of another month of pretending. Maybe it's posting one piece of work instead of building an entire brand overnight. One poem, one song, one video, one idea you've been hiding because fear told you. They'll laugh, they'll judge, they'll ignore you. Or it's applying for one opportunity, one scholarship, one job, one grant, one audition. Not because you know you'll get it, but because you refuse to let fear keep deciding for you. Psychologists have a word for this kind of thing: exposure. When you gradually face what you fear, your brain learns, I can handle this. Over time, the anxiety drops. Your self-trust rises. You stop overestimating the danger and underestimating your strength. That is not just science, that is spiritual training. That is God using practice to rewrite your nervous system. I need you to treat these moments like data, not verdicts. You are not proving your worth. You are collecting evidence. Evidence that things have a way of working out more often than your fear predicted. Evidence that even when it's messy, even when it doesn't go how you hoped, you grow, you adapt, you heal, you learn. Say it out loud. This is an experiment, not a final judgment on my life. Say that again. Let that sentence loosen the grip of perfectionism and shame. So, are you ready? This week, what is one small reversible experiment you could run with God to test whether things actually work out more often than your fear says? Not 10, not 20. 1. Because next we're going to talk about how to build on those little wins until faith becomes your default response, not fear. Because that's where this really starts to matter. Not in the experiment, not in the moment you feel brave, but in what you do after the high wears off, after the goosebumps are gone, after the sermon, the video, the conference fades, and you're left with dishes in the sink and emails in the inbox. I want to talk to you about that gap, the gap between the moment you believe and the months you have to build. At the beginning, faith feels loud. You're fired up. You're rating plans. You're making promises. But then Monday shows up. Resistance shows up. Old patterns knock on the door of your mind and say, "We're still here." That's where most people misread the situation. They think, if my faith was real, I wouldn't feel this tired. I wouldn't feel this scared. I wouldn't feel this unsure. Not true. Faith often shouts at the start. Determination whispers in the middle. Determination is what you decide when the emotion is gone, when nobody is clapping, when the progress is so slow you can't even see it yet. Here it is. Determination is choosing to keep walking when your feelings are sitting down. It's opening the laptop again after 3 rejections. It's going back to counseling after a hard session. It's sending one more application, making one more call, taking one more small step when everything in you says, "What's the point?" Determination is not flashy, it is faithful. And fear doesn't only stand at the starting line. Fear loves the middle. Fear waits until you've invested time, money, tears, and then it whispers, "Turn back. It's taking too long. You're too far in to start over," but not far enough to see anything changing. That's the most dangerous place. Too invested to quit cleanly. Too discouraged to move confidently. Have you felt that? Stuck between what you left and what you haven't reached yet. I need you to see this. That moment is spiritual. Determination is not just personality, it is worship. It is obedience. It is you saying, "God, I will keep showing up, not because I see it, but because I trust you while I don't see it." Every time you choose discipline over despair, you are praying with your feet. You are saying with your schedule what you claim with your mouth. Say that again in your heart. My consistency is my worship. Say it out loud if you have to, because things have a way of working out when you keep aligning your daily actions with your deepest belief, even when the results are delayed, even when the room is silent, even when nobody understands why you haven't given up yet. And we're going to go there next. We're going to walk into the stories of people who stayed in that middle place through rejection, through failure, through long, quiet years of delay. People who almost turned back but didn't. Because what happened on the other side of their determination is going to challenge what you call impossible right now. And it might expose the one excuse your fear doesn't want you to touch. Some of you are there right now, not in open rebellion against your dream, just tired. Tired in your body, tired in your mind, tired in that deep, quiet place of your spirit where you used to carry so much hope. You're tired of trying, tired of praying, tired of doing the right thing and not seeing the result you pictured. And I want to talk to you because that tired place is holy ground, and it is also dangerous ground. That's the place where fear pulls up a chair, lowers its voice, and starts sounding reasonable. Fear doesn't always shout, it waits. It watches you pour out effort, pour out faith, pour out determination, and then it waits for the evening you come home disappointed. It waits for the job that didn't call back, the launch that didn't work, the relationship that didn't heal. Then it whispers, maybe this isn't for you. Maybe you're asking for too much. Just be grateful for what you have. On the surface, that sounds mature, doesn't it? It sounds wise. It sounds like acceptance. But here it is. There is a difference between healthy contentment and fear-based settling. One is peace. The other is resignation dressed up as wisdom. Contentment says, I am grateful for today, and I still honor what God placed in my heart. Settling says, I'll stop wanting so I don't have to be disappointed again. That's not peace. That's a numbness that calls itself growth. And I need you to recognize it, because if you mislabel your resignation as maturity, you will spiritualize your fear and call it God's will. Studies show people fear loss about twice as much as they value gain. So of course your mind leans toward protecting you from more pain, but protecting you from all risk also protects you from the life you're called to live. Listen to me. You are allowed to rest. Rest is not quitting. Jesus rested. Your body, your emotions, and your spirit need recovery. Take a day, take a week, take a real break from pushing. But don't sign a long-term contract with smallness just because you're exhausted in this season. Rest is a pause. Settling is a surrender. Pattern interrupt. What if you're not failing? What if you're just in the middle of your process and your feelings are lying to you about the finish line? Things have a way of working out is not a cute quote. It is a mindset of staying when nothing seems to be moving. Research on resilience shows people who believe setbacks are temporary, keep walking, and eventually the season shifts. Say that again to yourself. Say it out loud if you have to. This is a season, not my sentence. Are you ready? Because next we're going to talk about how to rest the right way, how to reset your belief without shrinking your dream so you can walk out of this tired place with more confidence, not less. Hey, I want to talk to you about what it looks like to stay when everything in you wants to run. Because resting the right way is not quitting. Resetting your belief is not walking away from the story God is still writing. Think about J.K. Rowling, single mother, no money, sitting in cafes because it was warmer than her apartment, pushing a stroller, scribbling a story about a boy with a scar. She sent that manuscript out and heard no, no, no. 12 publishers rejected her. 12 doors slammed in her face while the bills were due and the fear was loud. She was not writing from comfort. She was writing from survival. But she kept submitting. She kept walking that manuscript back into the mail, even when her confidence was bruised. One small publisher finally said yes. That yes turned into Harry Potter, into a worldwide movement, into millions of children falling in love with reading. Here it is. The same pages that were rejected again and again became the pages that changed her life. The difference was not the paper. The difference was her determination to stay in the story. Now look at Steve Jobs. Co-founds Apple in his parents' garage, young, brilliant, confident. Then one day, he's fired from the very company he built. Public, humiliating. The world watched him be pushed out of his own creation. Can you imagine the shame, the doubt? The late nights asking, was I just a one-time fluke? He could have disappeared. Instead, he started next. He poured himself into Pixar. Toy Story, a new way of telling stories on screen. The same man the world watched fall became the man the world watched rise. When Apple brought him back, That so-called failure season became the foundation for the iPod, the iPhone, the revolution of an entire industry. Things have a way of working out when you refuse to let one chapter define the whole book. And then there's Sarah Blakely. As a little girl, her father would ask at dinner, "What did you fail at this week?" Not, "What did you win?" Not, "What did you get right?" He trained her to see failure as proof that she tried, as evidence that she was alive and reaching. That mindset became her shield when she was selling fax machines door to door, hearing no all day long, dreaming of a different life. She cut the feet off her pantyhose, started Spanx with her own savings, and ran into rejection after rejection from manufacturers and stores. But she had been taught that failure was feedback, not a verdict. So she kept calling, kept pitching, kept refining. Today she's a billionaire entrepreneur. But the real wealth was built long before the money showed up. It was built in that childhood practice of not letting fear of failure shut her down. I need you to see the thread. J.K. Rowling felt fear. Steve Jobs felt humiliation. Sarah Blakely felt doubt. Different stories, same decision. They stayed. They kept walking when it would have been easier to sit down and label themselves done. Your story may never be on a movie screen or a bestseller list, and that's okay. God is not impressed by fame, He's moved by faith. The principle is the same. What if you are quitting in chapter 3 of a story God intends to keep writing into chapter 30? What if today's rejection is just one publisher, one board meeting, one buyer saying no on the road to the right yes? Say that again to your own heart. This is a chapter, not the whole story. Say it out loud if you have to. Because next we're going to walk into the fear itself, and I'm going to show you how to stop letting it quietly cap your ambition and start using it as a compass for where God is growing you next. Let's go. So let's walk into that fear. I want to talk to you about the one thing fear cannot stand, a growth mindset. Because fear survives by convincing you that what happened is who you are. Psychologist Carol Dweck spent years studying this. She found something powerful. People who believe their abilities can grow, who believe skills are developable, not fixed, chase bigger goals and stay in the fight longer. Not just when it's easy, not just when they win. They keep going after a setback because in their mind, failure is information, not identity. Fear hates that. Fear wants you in a fixed mindset. This is just how you are. This is all you'll ever be. You're good or you're not. You're talented or you're not. Do you hear how closed that is? Mentally, emotionally, spiritually. There's no room for God to move in that story, no room for growth, no room for grace. Here it is. There are two ways you've been interpreting failure. I failed, therefore I am a failure. Or I failed, therefore I learned something I can use. One is a prison, one is a classroom. One freezes your ambition, one refines it. When fear is running the show, every no, every mistake, every awkward attempt gets glued to your identity. You don't just say, that launch failed. You say, I'm not an entrepreneur. You don't just say, that relationship ended. You say, I'm unlovable. You don't just say, I missed the note. You say, I'm not a real singer. Suddenly, every risk feels like a referendum on your worth, a vote on whether you are enough. I need you to hear this. That is a lie. Your worth is established by God, not by your last result. Things have a way of working out, not because you never fail, but because failure becomes part of how God grows you. Failure as data, failure as training, failure as God's way of refining your skill, your character, your clarity. Think about it like this. A scientist runs an experiment. It fails. Do they fall on the floor and say, I'm a terrible human being? No, they say, interesting. That didn't work. What does that tell me? What do I adjust? That's growth mindset. That's how faith and confidence look in motion. So today, I want you to revisit one past failure. Just one. The one that still stings. The one you keep replaying. Ask yourself slowly, honestly, what did this teach me? How did this grow me? Where did it force me to develop strength, compassion, boundaries, wisdom? And then ask with faith, how might this actually be part of things working out? Because in the next part, I'm going to take that same mindset and aim it straight at your biggest fear and show you why the very thing you're scared of might be the doorway you've been praying for. So now we turn that same question toward your fear and we get it really practical. Because determination is not a mood. It's not a rush of motivation you feel after a video like this. Determination is a pattern. It's the quiet, boring, holy pattern of you showing up in small ways over and over until your nervous system starts to believe, oh, we really are going to do this. I want to talk to you about tiny wins, not dramatic breakthroughs, not overnight success. Tiny, almost unimpressive actions that are so small, they're hard to skip, but so consistent they start to rewrite your story. 10 minutes of writing today, one email to a potential client, one phone call you've been avoiding, one practice rep of that skill. Setting aside $10 every single week, even when it feels like nothing. Here it is. Your fear loves extremes, all or nothing, succeed big, or don't even try. But faith grows in the middle, in the I'm just going to show up for 10 minutes kind of space. When psychologists talk about growth mindset, they're describing this exact thing. People who treat every small effort as feedback, not a verdict, end up aiming higher and staying in the game longer. Not because they feel braver, because they have a track record of showing up, pattern, interrupt. You keep calling yourself inconsistent, but look closely. You consistently check your phone. You consistently show up for other people. You consistently worry. So you do have determination. It's just been serving your fear instead of your future. Today, we start redirecting that. Tiny wins are how you build self-trust. Every time you say, I'll write for 10 minutes, and you actually sit down and write, you're not just producing words. You're teaching your brain, when I say something, I mean it. Every time you make that one uncomfortable call, you're not just networking. You're telling your heart, I can count on me. Say that again in your spirit. I can count on me. And this matters because fear screams the loudest when you don't trust yourself. Big commitments feel terrifying when your history with you is broken, promises and abandoned starts. But when you stack these tiny acts of determination, day after day, week after week, those bigger steps stop feeling like cliffs and start feeling like the next logical stone in the path you're already walking. I need you to understand this. Research shows we fear losses about twice as much as we value gains. That's why your mind exaggerates the risk of one email, one post, one ask. Tiny wins create evidence that the losses you feared either didn't happen, or they weren't fatal, or they became lessons that moved you forward anyway. Things have a way of working out when you give God something, however small, to bless. Are you ready? In the next part, I'm going to show you how to turn these tiny wins into a clear, simple rhythm for your days. So your determination doesn't depend on how you feel, but on who you're becoming. Let's go. You just heard how tiny wins stack up. How giving God something to bless changes the story. Now, I want to talk to you about the way you walk into the room while you're stacking those wins. Because confidence is not optional for where you're going, it's a pillar. When I say confidence, I'm not talking about puffing your chest out, not just thinking you're better than other people. I'm talking about being rooted in who you are and whose you are, even while you're still growing, still learning, still figuring it out. Confidence is identity. Confidence is, I know my source, I know my assignment, and I'm allowed to be here. Say that again in your heart. I'm allowed to be here. Fear knows this. That's why fear doesn't just attack your schedule or your goals. Fear attacks your confidence. It whispers, who do you think you are applying for that job, sitting at that table, sharing that idea, starting that business, posting that video? Fear makes you question your right to be in the room, the conversation, the opportunity. Not at you, not over you, not past you, inside you. I need you to notice how it shows up in the smallest details. How you say your own name when you introduce yourself. Do you shrink your voice at the end, like a question mark, like you're apologizing for existing? How you make eye contact or don't. How you present your ideas and then rush to water them down. This is where fear hides, in the slouch of your shoulders, in the way you default to. It's probably stupid, but before you speak, here it is. Confidence is how you carry your name into every room, your first and last name, and the name you carry above it. When you believe by faith that God called you, placed you, and is with you, you can walk differently, even when you feel underqualified. You can sit at the table and say, I might not know everything, but I know I'm meant to learn here. You can raise your hand in the meeting and offer the idea. You can send the email, book the call, step on the stage. Think about it. If the God who made the universe says, I am with you, what room is too big for you? What conversation is too high for you? What opportunity is off limits if he opened the door? Things have a way of working out when your confidence is anchored in him, not in whether everybody claps. And I understand some of you have a history of being overlooked, interrupted, laughed at. So your nervous system learned, stay small, stay safe. But today, right now, I want you to begin rewriting that. Say it out loud if you can. I belong in the rooms God sends me into. Not because you're perfect, because you're placed. In the next sections, we're going to get very practical, speaking up when your voice shakes, starting before you feel ready, refusing to let someone else's doubt define your internal worth. Are you ready? Let's go deeper into what confident action actually looks like, step by step. So when we talk about confident action, we have to talk about the quiet thief that follows you into every new room, imposter syndrome. I want to talk to you about that voice that whispers, you're faking it. They're going to find out. You don't belong here. Not just insecurity, a deep, nagging suspicion that you somehow slipped through the cracks. You look around the table and it feels like everyone else got a manual you never received. They sound smarter. They look more put together. Their path seems cleaner, and your mind starts building a case against you, line by line, moment by moment, until you're convinced that you are the exception, not the exception for favor, the exception who doesn't belong. That's how fear operates. It uses comparison like a magnifying glass. It takes your weaknesses, your unfinished places, your learning curve, and it zooms in until that's all you can see. Then it dresses perfectionism up as standards and tells you, until you know everything, until you stop making mistakes, you're an imposter. Here it is. Perfectionism is not excellence. Perfectionism is fear in a tuxedo. Psychologists talk about how we overestimate what could go wrong and underestimate how much we can grow. Spiritually, it's the same pattern. Fear makes you forget who walks with you. It makes you forget that God has a history of calling people who feel wildly underqualified. Moses stuttered. Jeremiah felt too young. Gideon was hiding in a winepress. And yet God said, I'm sending you. I need you to hear this. Feeling like an imposter is not proof that you are one. Often, it's proof that you're stretching. When you step into a new level, your old identity doesn't know what to do yet. Your nervous system is still calibrated to the smaller room, the safer circle, the old ceiling, so it fires off alarms. Not because you're wrong for being there, but because you're growing. Think about it. You didn't feel like an imposter in the comfort zone. You feel it when you're learning, when you're the least experienced in the room, when you're finally walking toward the thing you prayed for. That discomfort is data. It's a sign that your life is expanding beyond what your former self thought was possible. And you are not alone in this. High achieving people, deeply called people, people you admire from a distance, wrestle with the same thoughts. Studies show that even top performers, even people with awards and degrees, report feeling like frauds who just got lucky. So if you've been thinking, it's just me, that's another lie. Say that again in your heart. It's not just me. Here's the reframe I want you to walk with today. Imposter feelings are not a verdict, they're an invitation. An invitation to agree with God's assessment over fear's accusation. If God opened the door, you belong in the room. If He put the desire in your heart, you belong in the process, even while you learn, even while you stumble, even while you're still figuring it out. Things have a way of working out when you choose alignment over anxiety. When your belief about yourself lines up with His word, not with your worry. The question is not, do I ever feel like an imposter? The real question is, whose voice am I going to believe when I do? Because in the next part, we're going to expose the specific phrases fear uses to push you back to smallness. And I'm going to show you how to answer each one line by line until that voice loses its power. So when fear whispers those phrases and tries to push you back to smallness, it doesn't just stay in your head. It shows up in your mouth, or more accurately, in your silence. What if the life you want is on the other side of a conversation you're too scared to start? Sit with that for a second. Not a new job description, not a miracle opportunity, a conversation, words you have not yet been willing to say out loud. I want to talk to you about those conversations. The one where you ask for a raise, the one where you finally set a boundary with the person who keeps crossing lines, the one where you apologize for what you did, the one where you express interest in someone instead of pretending you don't care, the one where you pitch the idea, the one where you ask for help or mentorship instead of drowning quietly. Fear hates those moments because those are the doors, not just tiny talk, doorways to new income, new respect, new healing, new connection, new direction. So, what does fear do? It takes the smallest possibility of awkwardness and rejection and blows it up like it's guaranteed disaster. It shows you the win as tiny and the risk as enormous, even when that's not reality at all. Here it is. Your brain is wired to avoid loss more than it chases gain. That's what the research shows. So, of course, asking for a raise feels like I could lose my job instead of I could increase my income. Of course, asking for mentorship feels like they'll think I'm needy instead of This could change my career. Fear magnifies the scene where you stumble over your words and minimizes the scene where they say, "Yes, I've been waiting for you to speak up." Pattern interrupt. I need you to imagine something different right now. Imagine the conversation goes well. Imagine your voice doesn't ruin everything. It releases something. Imagine 10 years from today, looking back and realizing the real loss was not the no you might have heard, but the yes you never gave yourself a chance to receive. This is where speaking up scared comes in. Confidence is not waiting until your hands stop shaking, not waiting until your heart stops racing. Confidence is saying, I am still going to honor my calling, my needs, my values with my voice, and then opening your mouth anyway. Shaking, but speaking. Afraid, but honest. Say that again in your spirit. I can be scared and still speak. Confidence is not the absence of fear. It's the decision about who you believe while you feel it. It's choosing to speak from worth and purpose, not from panic and people pleasing. Things have a way of working out when you walk into hard conversations with faith, determination, and respect for yourself and for them. And in the next part, I'm going to give you practical language, actual phrases, so that when the moment comes, you're not empty mouthed. You're ready. And before we get into those exact phrases, I want to talk to you about something even more basic, more human, more everyday, your body. Because fear is not just in your head, not just in your thoughts, it's in your chest when it tightens. It's in your palms when they sweat. It's in your breathing when it turns shallow and fast. And in your heart when it starts to race like you're in danger. Even when you're just about to send an email or walk into a meeting. I need you to understand this. You are not crazy. You are not too sensitive. Your nervous system has been learning your whole life. Every time you were embarrassed in front of a class, every time you were rejected by someone you cared about, every time you felt unsafe or shamed or humiliated, your body took notes. Quiet notes, deep notes. So now, when you stand up to share an idea, when you think about launching that business, when you prepare to have a hard conversation, your body remembers. It says, last time we did something like this, it hurt. And without asking your permission, it flips on the alarm. Tight chest, sweaty palms, shaking voice. Maybe even that urge to run, to cancel, to hide. That reaction is not proof that you're weak. Say that again in your heart. That reaction is proof that your body is trying to protect you. Not at you, not against you, but for you. It's just using old information, old stories, old pain to make decisions about your present. Here it is. Confidence is not never feeling that surge of fear. Confidence is knowing what to do with your body when the surge comes, so your faith can still lead and your determination can still move your feet. So what do you do practically right now, today? You ground. You come back into your body with gentleness instead of judgment. Slow your breathing. In through your nose for 4, hold for 4, out through your mouth for 6. Again, again. Feel your feet on the floor. Really feel them, like you're sending roots down to the ground. Name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear. Let your senses anchor you in this moment instead of that memory. And for you who walk by faith, add this, a short prayer, whispered or in your heart. God, calm my body, steady my mind. Help me walk in confidence. Simple, honest, direct. When you soothe your body, you create space between the fear and the choice. Space to remember who you are. Space to remember who walks with you. Space to choose a faith-aligned action instead of automatically obeying the alarm. Things have a way of working out when you stop letting your nervous system drive the car and start letting it ride with you peacefully as you move toward your calling. And in the next part, we're going to take this even further and talk about how to retrain those fear patterns over time. So your default setting becomes courage, not panic. Let's go. So let's keep going. You've calmed the alarm a little. You're learning not to let fear drive the car, but there's still this pressure, isn't there? This voice that says, if this doesn't work, what does that say about me? I want to talk to you about that voice. Fear doesn't just make you sweat. Fear tries to tie your worth to outcomes, the promotion, the views, the income, the relationship, the approval. Suddenly, every risk feels like a verdict. Not just, did this work, but am I enough? Am I valuable? Am I lovable? When your identity is glued to results, every delay feels like a threat, and every failure feels like a personal attack. Here it is. That is too much weight for any outcome to carry. God never designed your calling to be the judge of your worth. Your job, your numbers, your performance, your reputation, they are assignments and seasons, not your identity. Your identity is beloved. Your identity is child of God. Your identity is secure before you ever start the project, before you ever pitch the idea, before one person ever claps for you. So I need you to adopt a new metric. Not, did I win yet? Wait, was I faithful today? Success becomes faithfulness to who you're called to be and what you're called to do, regardless of how fast the visible results show up. Not just big wins, not just highlight moments. Ordinary, consistent, obedient steps that line up with your values and your God given design. Ask a different question as you pursue your ambition. Not only, what am I getting from this, but who am I becoming as I walk this out? Am I becoming more courageous, more honest, more disciplined, more compassionate? Am I building character, or am I just chasing confirmation? When you shift the question, you shift the pressure. The journey stops being a test you can fail and becomes a process that forms you. Think about the research on growth mindset. People who see failure as feedback, not a final verdict on their identity, pursue more ambitious goals and stay in the game longer. Why? Because the failure doesn't define them, it refines them. When your worth is already anchored in God, you can afford to try, fail, learn, and try again. You can afford to experiment. You can afford to grow. Say that again in your heart. I can afford to grow. When your identity is secure, risk stops feeling like a cliff and starts feeling like a classroom. You're not gambling your worth every time you step out. You're just practicing your calling. Things have a way of working out when you stand in confidence rooted in who you are, not in guarantees about what will happen. Are you ready for the shift that really breaks fear's grip? In the next part, we're going to take this identity and plug it into how you see time, delay, and nothing is happening yet. And that's where everything starts to look very different. So let's plug it in. If confidence is rooted in who you are, not in guarantees, then the real question becomes this: what kind of life are you going to live with that confidence? Is safe and stuck, or scared and growing? I want to talk to you about those two paths because whether you realize it or not, you are already walking one of them. Safe and stuck looks calm from the outside. Your days are predictable. Same job, same conversations, same level of risk. You rarely feel embarrassed, you rarely feel exposed, and you rarely feel like you're in over your head. On paper, it looks fine, but in your spirit, there's that quiet ache, the lingering what if, the sense that you're surviving your life instead of living it. Safe and stuck is you staying in a role you've outgrown because it pays the bills. But your gifts are asleep. It's you never starting the business, never applying for the promotion, never sharing the song, never leading the Bible study, because the possibility of failure feels heavier than the possibility of fulfillment. You don't crash. You also don't really fly. You just circle. Now let me show you the other path. Scared and growing does not look neat. Your heart races, your hands shake. You have conversations you'd rather avoid. You try things you don't feel ready for. You stretch, you stumble, you learn. Some doors close. Some people don't understand. But inside, something is different. There is an aliveness, a sense of alignment with your calling. You feel yourself becoming who God always knew you could be. This is the person who starts the project with no guarantee of applause, who goes back to school at 40, who forgives when it would be easier to stay bitter, who prays, Lord, I'm scared, but I'm going to step anyway. That's scared and growing, not reckless, not careless, just willing to feel fear in the direction of growth. Pattern interrupt. What if you're not unmotivated at all? What if your fear is just very skilled at sounding reasonable? Because fear rarely yells, stay small. Fear says, be wise, be realistic, be mature. It dresses up safe and stuck in spiritual language and adult language so you can call it responsible while your purpose withers. Here it is. Real maturity in God is not hiding behind caution. Real maturity is wise risk, faithful courage, holy determination. Sometimes it's trembling, but still taking the next step. So I need you to get specific. Where in your life are you choosing safe and stuck over scared but growing? Say it out loud. Is it a relationship you won't define? A dream you won't start? A calling you keep delaying until later? Name it, because what you won't name, you can't change. Things have a way of working out when you walk by faith, not by the illusion of control. In the next part, we're going to talk about how to take that named area and start moving in tiny, holy risks so you can feel fear and still move forward. Let's go. Hey, I want to talk to you about something that most people never admit out loud. You don't just have a fear problem, you have a system problem. You have a support problem. You have an environment that quietly makes fear. The boss, willpower by itself, is not going to carry you into your calling. Not just trying harder, not just waking up and saying, today I'm going to be brave, and then hoping it sticks. You need structures around you that make courageous choices easier and fear-based choices harder, because your feelings are too unstable to be the only strategy. Faith is not random. Faith is organized courage. Here it is. Fear loves empty space. Fear loves unplanned time. Fear loves vague goals. When your day has no shape, fear will shape it for you. So you build systems. You decide that the first focused hour of your day belongs to your ambition, not to your notifications, not to everybody else's emergencies, not to scrolling. You put the work that matters most at the time you have the most energy, before doubts have a chance to fully wake up. That might look like a written schedule, not just in your head. It might look like real deadlines, not someday. You tell a friend, by Friday, I will send the proposal, and you put it on the calendar. You join a class, a program, a group, where showing up is expected. Exposure therapy shows us that facing what you fear repeatedly shrinks the fear. So you design routines that bring you back again and again until courage becomes your normal and anxiety has to find a new address. But systems alone are cold without support. I need you to hear this. You were not designed to fight fear in isolation. When fear gets loud, you need people who remind you who you are. Friends who say, "You've come too far to quit now." Mentors who have already walked through rejection and delay and can say, "Things have a way of working out when you keep moving." Faith communities, small groups, prayer partners who will carry you when your own belief feels thin. Because when you fall, and you will sometimes, their voices become a bridge back to your own confidence. Not at you, not over you, not past you, but with you. And every time you keep a promise to yourself, something powerful happens inside. Say that again in your heart. Every single time. You said you'd write for 20 minutes and you did. You said you'd make that call and you did. You said you'd apply, submit, show up, and you did. Each kept promise is a small testimony. It weakens fear's argument that you can't handle big steps. It tells your nervous system, "We survived, we're still here. We can walk again tomorrow." So you start designing your environment on purpose. Physical, a clean desk, your Bible or journal open, your tools ready, so there is less friction between you and obedience. Digital, notifications off during your focus time, social media off your home screen, playlists that calm your mind and stir your determination instead of feeding comparison. Relational, more conversations with people who speak life, fewer hours with voices that mock, minimize, or keep you small. Are you ready? Because this is where fear starts losing its job. When your calendar, your surroundings, your relationships, and your inner promises all point in the same direction, you stop waiting to feel brave and you start living brave. In the next part, we're going to get even more specific. We're going to walk through tiny practical risks you can take this week so you can prove to yourself that your systems, your support, and your self-trust are stronger than your fear. Let's go. So, as you start taking those tiny practical risks, there's another test that shows up fast. People. Not systems, not schedules, not strategy. People. I want to talk to you about what happens when you finally share what's in your heart and the room goes quiet. You know that feeling. You open your mouth, you talk about the business, the ministry, the move, the book, the degree, and instead of support, you get a joke, a raised eyebrow, or that heavy silence that says, "Be realistic." That hurts. It hurts because you weren't just sharing a plan. You were sharing a piece of your soul, and it feels like they dropped it on the floor. Here it is. Fear loves that moment. Fear grabs their doubt and uses it like a microphone in your own mind. See, you're reaching too high. Who do you think you are? People like you don't do things like that. Not just one voice, an echo from your past, your failures, your insecurities, all agreeing with the most negative person in the room. But I need you to understand something today. Not all criticism is created equal. Some of it is wise counsel. Some of it is fear-based projection, and they do not weigh the same. Wise counsel may challenge your timeline, your strategy, your preparation, but it still respects your calling. Fear-based projection attacks the core, your identity, your worth, your right to even try. Think about who is talking to you. Is this someone who walks by faith and takes holy risks, or someone who has been sitting in the same comfort zone for 20 years? Psychologists tell us people fear loss about twice as much as they value gain. So when a fearful person looks at your dream, all they can see is what might be lost, not what God might build through you. Confidence, real, unshakable confidence, is not plugging your ears. It's listening with humility, but standing with firmness. You stay teachable, but you don't stay movable on what God has clearly placed in your heart. You can adjust the route without abandoning the destination. You can refine the method without surrendering the mission. So you learn to ask, is this feedback about my plan, or is this fear about their pain? You hold your calling open handed before God, but you don't hand it over to every opinion that walks by. Say that again in your spirit. I can be open to feedback without giving up my assignment. Say it out loud if you have to, because when your validation comes from a deeper place, from God's voice, from your growing self belief, you can keep walking even when nobody claps. Not at you, not over you, not past you. You walk anyway. And as you walk, something powerful starts to happen. Things have a way of working out in ways that doubters never imagined. Are you ready for the next layer? In a moment, we're going to talk about a different kind of resistance, not from the outside, but from the people closest to you, and what to do when the doubt is sitting at your own table. So, when the doubt isn't just out there, but sitting at your own table, whispering in your own voice, here's what usually happens. You don't crash your life in one big moment. You slowly shrink it. You quietly choose safety over purpose again and again until fear has edited your story and you call it being realistic. I want to talk to you about that voice because psychologists have studied people at the very end of life and they found something sobering. What hurts most is not the risks they took that failed, it's the chances they never took. Over and over, people regret inaction more than action. Not the job they tried and lost, the dream they never pursued, not the relationship that didn't work, the love they never expressed. I need you to let that sink in. Right now, fear is trying to convince you that playing small is the safe option. But your future self is standing in the doorway of time saying, please don't do that to us. Imagine yourself 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 40 years from now, looking back on this exact season, looking back on this decision, looking back on this dream. Here it is. Will you be more upset about the times you failed or the chances you never took because fear sounded reasonable? Because fear used big words like stability and security and timing to keep you from moving? Daniel Kahneman's research shows you naturally fear loss about twice as much as you value gain. So, of course, your mind overestimates what might go wrong and underestimates what obedience, courage, and faith might unlock, pattern interrupt. What if you flipped it? What if the real risk is not the move you're scared to make, but the person you're going to become if you never make it? Staying stuck is not neutral. It costs your confidence, your joy, your sense of calling. It drains you mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You think you're protecting yourself, but you might be slowly abandoning yourself. Things have a way of working out when you walk with faith and determination, not when you sit with fear and justification. Exposure therapy shows that when people face what they fear, the fear shrinks, not all at once, step by step. The same is true with your calling. Action is how you teach your nervous system, your mind, your spirit. We can survive this. We can grow through this. So are you ready? I need you to let your future self speak louder than your present fear. Picture their eyes, hear their voice. Let them say, take the class, start the business, have the hard conversation, write the book, trust God here. Say that again in your own words. Say it out loud if you have to. Because the next part of this journey is going to get even more personal. We're going to talk about the quiet agreements you've made with fear and how to break them so you can finally walk free. So let's go a layer deeper into those quiet agreements with fear. Because one of the biggest is this: if I really want more, that must mean I'm selfish. I want to talk to you about that. Because for some of you, that lie has been sitting in the corners of your spirit for years, and it's been choking your ambition in the name of being spiritual. You love God, you want to honor God, and somewhere along the way, you picked up this belief that the holiest thing you can do is shrink, stay small, never ask for more. But I need you to hear this. Wanting more is not the problem. What you want it for and who you're willing to surrender it to, that's where the real question lives. There's a difference between ego ambition and kingdom ambition. Ego ambition says, if I build this, then I'll finally matter. If I win, I'm better than you. If I shine, you have to dim. It's about proving your worth, dominating the room, impressing people who don't even know your middle name. Kingdom ambition sounds different. It says, I want to build so I can bless. I want to create so I can heal. I want to lead so I can lift. Same drive, same energy, completely different spirit. Here it is. Ambition is a tool. Faith is the hand that holds it. In the wrong hands, it cuts. In surrendered hands, it builds. God has always worked through people who are willing to desire, to build, to create, to lead. Think about it. Builders of arcs, writers of letters, leaders of movements. They weren't passive. They weren't hiding. They moved with confidence and determination. But their hearts were bowed. Fear will try to dress itself up as humility. Who am I to start that business? Who am I to write that book? Who am I to lead that team? It sounds holy. It sounds modest. But often it's just fear, wearing a church outfit. Real humility is not denying what God put in you. Real humility is admitting, I can't do this without God, and then actually doing it with God. Some of you have been praying, God, take this desire away, when the prayer you really need is, God, purify this desire. Say that again in your own words. Say it out loud if you have to. God, don't erase my ambition. Align it, clean it, aim it. When you pray like that, you're not asking to be less. You're asking to be truer. Are you ready? Tonight, I want you to bring your ambitions into the light. Name them before God. The career, the calling, the impact. Ask Him, show me where ego is talking. Show me where your kingdom is calling. Things have a way of working out when your desire is honest, your motives are being purified, and your courage is rooted in Him. And in the next part of this journey, we're going to get even more practical. We're going to talk about how fear uses your past failures and other people's opinions to keep you from ever taking that next bold step. Fear is not just in your past. Fear is standing right beside your calling, right now, where God is whispering, come this way, and something in you is whispering back, I'm not ready. I want to talk to you about that collision, that place where you feel drawn and terrified at the same time. Because if you think fear means God isn't speaking, you're going to keep waiting for a feeling that never comes, and you'll miss the very path that was meant to grow your faith, your confidence, your determination. Look at Scripture. Moses was called from a burning bush. But what came out of his mouth? Who am I? I can't speak. Jeremiah heard God say, I appointed you as a prophet. And he answered, I'm too young. I don't know how to speak. Gideon said, my clan is the weakest, and I am the least. Over and over, the pattern is the same. God calls, and fear answers first. Not because they were cowards, not because they lacked faith completely, because they were human. Because calling always exposes the gap between what you can do on your own and what God is going to do through you. That gap feels like terror. That gap feels like What if I fail? What if I heard wrong? What if I'm not enough? I need you to hear this. Feeling afraid and feeling called at the same time is normal. Holy, even. It means your spirit has woken up to something bigger than your comfort zone. Psychologists talk about loss aversion, how we fear loss almost twice as much as we value gain. So, of course, your nervous system screams when God invites you into risk, into obedience, into visibility. Here it is. The presence of fear is not the absence of God. Often, it's evidence that the step actually matters. The enemy is not going to fight you hardest over a pointless decision. Your doubt does not disqualify you. Your shaking hands do not cancel your assignment. Things have a way of working out when you move anyway, with faith in your heart and your knees still knocking. So, what do you do in that collision? You pray honestly, not the polished prayer you think you're supposed to pray. The real one. God, I'm scared, but I'm willing. Show me if this is you. Give me courage. Give me wisdom. Give me confirmation. Say that again in your own words until your heart starts to agree. And then you take the next small step. Not the whole journey, the conversation, the application, the phone call. You let your feet preach what your fear doesn't yet believe. You walk, even if it's slow. Because when you move with faith, stay with determination, and stand in confidence that He is with you, doors begin to open that you could not have forced. And in the next part, we're going to expose the specific lies fear tells you about your past and your reputation, and one shift that will break its grip more than you expect. So now that we've exposed some of fear's lies, I want to talk to you about something very practical, because insight without action just becomes another shelf of spiritual theory in your mind. We're not doing that. We're going to train your courage gently but deliberately with a 7-day fear-breaking challenge. Are you ready? This is not about fixing your whole life in a week, not about proving you're strong enough. This is about practicing a new way to walk, a way where you and God move together, step by step, and you start to see with your own eyes that things have a way of working out when you move in faith instead of hiding in fear. Here it is. For the next 7 days, you're going to focus on one domain where fear has been the loudest. Not 10 areas, not everything at once. One, career, creativity, relationships, health, or faith obedience. Those hard yeses and no's you've been avoiding with God. I need you to pick the one that keeps tapping on your heart when you try to fall asleep. Day 1 is awareness, no pressure to act yet. You sit with a journal and you write every fear sentence that shows up in that domain. If I try, I'll fail. If I speak, they'll reject me. Don't edit, don't judge. Just get it out of the shadows and onto the page, because fear loses power when it's dragged into the light. Day 2 is a tiny action, not the big leap, the smallest honest step in that same area. Send the email, walk for 10 minutes, share one piece of your art, obey one small nudge you've been resisting. It should feel uncomfortable but not overwhelming, like stretching a muscle, not tearing it. Day 3 is a conversation. You tell a safe person what you're afraid of in that domain and what you did on day 2. You ask for prayer, for encouragement, for accountability. Fear thrives in isolation. It shrinks when it has to explain itself out loud. Day 4 is learning. You read, watch, or listen to something that builds skill or faith in that area. A book on starting a business, a teaching on forgiveness, a message on healing. You're telling your brain, we are not helpless here. We can grow. Day 5 is a bigger action, not reckless, but real. Apply for the role. Schedule the doctor's appointment. Have the hard but loving talk. Share the project publicly. This is where your heart races and your old story screams. But you move anyway. Day 6 is reflection. You look back over the week and ask, what actually happened? Research shows we overestimate risk and underestimate resilience. So I want you to track how often the outcome was less catastrophic than fear predicted. Write it down. Build your own evidence bank. Day 7 is celebration and planning. You thank God. You honor your courage. You note what worked, what didn't, and you choose one habit to carry forward. This week is not a test of your worth. It is training in the belief that with faith, determination, and confidence, you can walk into fear and still be held. And in the next part, we're going to take that evidence and confront the deeper story underneath it. The one fear wrote about your past, your reputation, and what you're allowed to become. Hey, I want to talk to you about that story playing in the background of your mind. The one that keeps telling you who you are, what you're allowed to want, how far you're allowed to go. Because fear has been holding the pen for a long time. And today, we're going to start taking it back. Are you ready? I need you to walk with me into some honest places. I want you to quietly identify the key chapters where fear made the big decisions. The job you didn't apply for because you weren't qualified. The relationship you didn't pursue because you didn't want to be a burden. The idea you didn't share, the business you didn't start, the room you didn't walk into, not just one moment. Chapter after chapter where fear sounded reasonable and you obeyed. And when you see it, it hurts. There's grief there. There's frustration there. Studies show that at the end of life, people regret more of what they didn't do than what they tried and failed at. You can feel that in your own chest, can't you? The missed chances, the quiet what ifs. I want you to know that grief is holy. It means your spirit still cares. It means your desire is not dead. But here it is. Fear was loud, but God was not absent. Even in the fear-written chapters, God was still moving. Think back. The door you were too scared to walk through that later you realize would have crushed you. The opportunity you avoided that pushed you toward a healthier path. The failure you were terrified of that became the lesson that matured you mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Not at you, not over you, not past you. God was with you in it. Psychologists talk about loss aversion, how we fear loss almost twice as much as we value gain. That's why fear sounds so convincing. But your faith tells a different story. Your faith says, even when I shrink back, God can redirect. Even when I hesitate, God can redeem. Things have a way of working out when you let God into the narrative, even the messy parts you're ashamed of. So we're going to rewrite the headline, not, I'm the person who always lets fear win. Say that again in a new way. I'm the person who is learning to choose courage with God's help. Say it out loud if you can, because when you name yourself differently, you start to walk differently. You start to show up with a new kind of quiet confidence. From this point forward, new chapters can be written. Chapters where fear might still whisper, but faith, determination, and confidence sit at the table as co-authors. You still feel the tremble, but you take the step. You still hear the doubt, but you move anyway. And as you do, you begin to collect new evidence, new memories, new pages that prove God is faithful and you are not who you used to be. In the next part, we're going to get even more practical and talk about how to face those fear-filled moments in real time. So you don't hand the pen back when the pressure rises. So when that pressure rises, when fear starts shouting, You need something louder already waiting on your tongue. I want to talk to you about the words you start your day with, because they are not small, they are steering wheels. They quietly turn the direction of your mind, your faith, your confidence before you even step out the door. Every morning, you are preaching something to yourself, not just with sermons or scriptures you hear on Sunday, but with the first thoughts you allow, the first sentences you agree with. This is going to be a terrible day. Nothing ever works for me. Why even try? Those are liturgies, too. They are daily rituals of fear. And if you repeat them long enough, they start to feel like truth, even when they are just old pain, old disappointment, old lies dressed up as logic. Here it is. You need a different liturgy, a daily, deliberate, faith-filled script that meets fear before fear meets you. Not magic words, not superstition, a rhythm, a repeated alignment of your heart, your mind, your spirit with what God says, not what fear says. So I want to give you a simple declaration for your mornings. Are you ready? Say it out loud with me. Today, things have a way of working out as I move with faith, stay with determination, and stand in confidence. Say that again, slower this time. Let every phrase land. Today, things have a way of working out as I move with faith, stay with determination, and stand in confidence. That's not denial, that's direction. You are choosing the lens before the day chooses it for you. And then you add shorter lines, sharp like arrows. I will not let fear write my story. I can do hard things with God. I'm allowed to want more and grow. These are not empty compliments, they are corrections. They challenge the old belief that people like you don't make it, that wanting more is selfish, that hard things will break you instead of build you. I need you to get practical with this. Put these words where your fear usually shows up. On your bathroom mirror so you see them with sleepy eyes. On your phone lock screen so you face them before you face the world. In your notebook, at the top of your to-do list, so every task is covered by truth. Visual anchors. When fear whispers, your eyes and your mouth answer back. Remember, these liturgies are not spells you recite and then sit still. They are cues. They nudge you to take that next right step, to send that message, to apply, to try, even while your hands shake. Over time, like exposure therapy has shown, what you face repeatedly loses its power. Action shrinks fear, repetition rewires belief. And in the next part, we're going to take these words off the page and into a specific, real fear you're carrying right now. And I'm going to ask you to do something with it that might scare you in the best possible way. So let's be honest. There are going to be days when everything we just talked about, you don't do it. You don't face the fear. You don't send the message. You don't make the call. You stay quiet. You stay small. You stay safe. I want to talk to you about those days because they are coming. Not to scare you, to prepare you. Because if you don't understand what to do when fear wins around, you will turn a single hard day into a whole defeated season. And you don't have to live that way. Here it is. Even with all this insight, all this faith, all this new confidence, there will still be moments when you back down. You'll walk into the room ready to speak, and you'll stay in the corner. You'll open the laptop to start, and you'll close it again. Not because you're weak, not because you're lazy, but because fear is practiced, rehearsed, and very, very familiar. This is where the real danger shows up. Not in the fear itself, but in the shame that follows. Fear loves to come back later and whisper, "See, you'll never change. This is just who you are." It takes one missed opportunity, one quiet night, one project you didn't start, and tries to turn it into a permanent identity. That shame is what makes you want to quit altogether. I need you to refuse that. Progress is not linear, not emotionally, not spiritually, not in your career. Exposure therapy, growth mindset, resilience research, they all say the same thing in different language. Courage is built over time, with many imperfect reps, not one flawless performance, not one perfect day. So, what do you do on the day fear wins? You don't punish yourself, you practice recovery. Step 1. Notice without judgment. Today, fear got the last word. Say that again, but without the insult. Just data, just truth. Step 2. Reflect. What exactly did fear say? You'll lose everything. You'll look stupid. That's a loss aversion talking, that part of your brain that overvalues what might go wrong and ignores what might go right. Step 3. Extract the lesson. Maybe you needed more preparation. Maybe you needed support in the room. Maybe you discovered a deeper belief like, people like me don't make it. That's not failure. That's information. Step 4. Plan one small corrective action for tomorrow. Not 10. 1. A message sent, a question asked, a draft written for 10 minutes. Are you ready? Because this is where things have a way of working out, becomes practical. Not magical, practical. Things have a way of working out when you keep coming back with faith, determination, and confidence, even after a fearful day. When you treat today's stumble as training, not a life sentence. Even on the days fear wins, the story isn't over. God is not done. The page is not full. And in the next part, we're going to turn this recovery plan into a concrete personal ritual you can use every single time you feel yourself backing down, so you never stay stuck in that place again. Hey, can I talk to you right now about something that might quietly be holding you back? I want to talk to you about the danger of just listening, just watching, just nodding your head and feeling inspired, but never actually moving. Because there is a trap in this kind of content. It feels like growth. It sounds like growth. You feel stirred, emotional, hopeful, and your brain checks a box that says, we did something. But you didn't. Not yet. Information is not transformation. Motivation is not movement. Hearing truth is powerful, but if it never reaches your calendar, your conversations, your choices, it becomes another spiritual sugar rush that wears off by tomorrow. So I need you to hear me with love and with urgency. Do not turn this into another playlist you visit when you feel low. Let this be a turning point. And here it is. The turning point is not 10 steps. It's not a whole life overhaul. It is one brave step. Your fear is going to try to negotiate with you right here. It's going to say, make a big plan, redesign your whole life, write out 20 changes. That sounds responsible, but it's another delay tactic. I need you to resist that. Not 10 things, not 5 things. One thing. One specific, concrete, brave step you are going to take in the next 24 to 72 hours. Are you ready? I want you to scan your life for a moment. Where is fear quietly writing the script? Maybe it's that email you keep drafting and deleting. The one that asks for the opportunity, the raise, the collaboration. Maybe it's booking the appointment with a counselor, a doctor, a mentor, because you know you need help, but you're afraid of what they might say. Maybe your step is signing up for the class, the program, the ministry team you've been stalking online for 6 months. Maybe it's starting the draft of the book, the business plan, the testimony you know God has put on your heart. Maybe it's having the hard conversation you've been avoiding, or finally sharing the work you've been hiding, posting the song, sending the portfolio, submitting the application. This is not just about the task. This is about training your heart in a new belief. Every time you take a brave step, you are practicing the truth that things have a way of working out differently than fear predicts. You are challenging the lie that loss is guaranteed, that rejection is fatal, that failure is final. You are building real confidence, rooted in faith and determination, not on perfect outcomes. So right now, I want you to choose. Say it out loud if you can. My one brave step is, and fill in that blank. Then I want you to mentally rehearse it. See yourself walking into that moment with God beside you. Feel the fear in your chest, the what ifs in your mind, and then see yourself moving anyway. See His presence steadying your breathing, guiding your words, opening doors you cannot see yet. This is exposure with grace, action with companionship. You are not proving your worth, you are practicing your trust. And in the next part, we're going to build a simple daily ritual around this, so that one brave step doesn't stay a moment. It becomes your new way of walking with God through fear. So, as we build this daily ritual, I want to talk to you about who you are becoming while you walk it out, not just what you do. Who you are: faith, determination, confidence. Those are not three random words I threw at you. They are three strands of one cord. God is weaving through your life right now, even in the fear, even in the doubt, even in the delay. Faith is where it starts. Faith is you choosing to trust God beyond the worst case stories your mind loves to rehearse. Not just, I hope it works out. Faith says, things have a way of working out when I walk with Him. Even when all you can see is that tiny seed of belief buried under the soil of your circumstances. Determination is you staying when it's hard, staying when the results are slow, staying when the door looks closed. But you remember, we talked about the cracked door that still lets in light. You keep showing up to the conversation, the application, the practice, the prayer, because you know every small step is watering that seed. Confidence is how you carry your name and your calling while you wait. It's the way you stand in the hallway before the door opens. Not arrogance, not pretending. A quiet, rooted awareness that you are in covenant with God, that you have declared, I am not my past. I am not my fear. I am who He says I am. Here it is. Faith fuels determination. When you trust that God is writing your story, you can keep turning the page when a chapter feels dark. Determination builds confidence because every time you stay, every time you try again, your nervous system learns. I can survive this. I can grow here. And confidence makes it easier to act in faith again, because you start to expect that with God, you and fear are not equal opponents. Say that again in your heart. This is a cycle of courage, not a circle of stuck. Faith to determination, to confidence, to more faith. A cracked door letting in more light. A story being rewritten line by line. A covenant declaration becoming your daily posture, not just a moment of inspiration. I need you to stop seeing yourself as someone who has fear and start seeing yourself as someone who is learning to walk with these three traits active. You still feel the fear, yes, but now you recognize it as information, not an order. You remember the research that says people regret the chances they never took more than the failures they lived through. And you decide, my fear is not going to write my regret list. So let's make this personal. Say it out loud if you can. I'm a person of faith, determination, and confidence. With God, I do not let fear hinder my ambition. That is your identity statement. mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You are agreeing with heaven against your old story. And in the next part, we're going to take that identity and build a practical, simple rhythm you can live tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night, so that this doesn't stay words on a screen, but becomes the way you actually move through fear when the pressure is real. So now we take all of that identity work and we do something holy with it. We make a decision, not just in your head, with your mouth, with your body, with your spirit. I want to talk to you about the pen that's been writing your story. For years, fear has been holding it, quietly, subtly, writing small chapters, safe chapters, chapters where you survived, but you did not soar. And today, right now, we are going to take that pen back. Are you ready? I need you to slow down with me. Feel your feet on the floor. Unclench your jaw. Drop your shoulders. Take a deep breath in and out, because this is not just another inspiring moment. This is a transfer of authorship. I want you to imagine fear sitting across from you at a table. It looks reasonable. It sounds protective. It reminds you of every failure, every loss, every rejection. It quotes statistics. It talks about loss aversion, about how people fear losing twice as much as they value gaining. It tells you, play small, stay safe. Now look at its hand, the hand holding the pen. See your career there, your calling, the book you didn't write, the conversation you avoided, the move you postponed, the dream that stayed in drafts, not because you were incapable, but because fear was really good at sounding like wisdom. Here it is, in your mind. I want you to reach out, slowly, calmly. Take the pen out of fear's hand. It resists for a moment, then lets go. Feel that. Feel the weight of it in your fingers. This is your agency, your ambition, your yes. Now turn. Jesus is beside you. Not distant, not abstract, right here. Hold that same pen out to him. Watch him take it, but keep your hand on it too. This is not you quitting your responsibility. This is you choosing a new co-author. You and God writing together. We're going to make a declaration. Say it out loud with me, slowly. Today, I take the pen of my life back from fear. Pause. Breathe. I place this pen in God's hand, and I choose to write with him. Pause again. Let the words land. I will act, even when I'm afraid, because my faith is bigger than my feelings. Say that again, but this time, feel your future in it. Mark this, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. This is a turning point. You will still feel fear. Your heart will still race. Your mind will still imagine worst-case scenarios. But from this moment forward, fear does not get the final say on your ambition. Things have a way of working out when you walk with your true author. And in the next part, we're going to turn this declaration into a simple daily rhythm so that every morning you pick up that pen again with God and write a bolder line than the day before. Hey, can I talk to you right here in this moment before you rush back into your day? Because what we just said cannot stay theory. It cannot just be a nice line you heard on a video. It has to become a step, a walk, a decision. I want to talk to you about your part in this. Not what I'm going to do, what you're going to do. Are you ready? Here it is. I need you to solidify your commitment. Not someday, today, right now. I want you to either grab a journal or, if you're willing, go down into the comments and name one fear-breaking step you are going to take this week. Not 10 steps. Not your whole 5-year plan. One step. One conversation you've been avoiding. One application you've been scared to submit. One boundary you've been afraid to set. When you write it, you move it from vague intention to visible commitment. You turn maybe into I will. Say that again in your own words. Say it out loud if you have to. This is the step I'm taking. And then I need you to think of one person whose ambition is being quietly strangled by fear. You already know their face. You've heard them talk themselves down. You've watched them shrink. I'm not asking you to share this video to help my channel. That's not the assignment. I'm asking you to send it as an act of love, an act of courage, an act of faith. You're saying, I don't want fear writing your story either. That's accountability. That's community. Because here's what we know from the research and from real life. Most people regret the chances they never took more than the failures they lived through. People fear loss so much they stay small, even when the risk is reasonable. So when you share this, you're not just pressing a button. You are gently pushing someone toward the life they'll be grateful they reached for. And when fear gets loud again, and it will, you are not going to pretend you never heard this. You're going to come back, re-watch this, rehear what you decided. Let this message be your reset button, your reminder that things have a way of working out when you walk with God in faith and determination. Finally, I want you to create your own short version of this core belief. Not my words, yours. Maybe it's fear doesn't lead my life, or God and I can handle whatever comes. Write it on a sticky note, your lock screen, your mirror, somewhere you cannot ignore. So every day, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you are prompted to live what you just received. Let's go. In the next part, I'm going to show you how to turn that little sentence you write into a daily rhythm that trains your mind to trust, even when your fear tries to pull you back. So as we close this, I want to talk to you, not as a voice on a screen, but as someone sitting across from you right now, into this exact mix of hope and fear you're carrying, because I know it's both. Part of you is ready, part of you is nervous, part of you believes, part of you is still asking, what if it doesn't work out? Here it is. This moment is holy because it's honest. You don't have to pretend you're not afraid. You don't have to fake confidence. God is not waiting for you to become fearless. God is willing to walk with you while your hands still shake, while your voice still trembles, while your heart still races every time you step beyond what is comfortable. So I want to pray over you, even if you're not used to that language. I'm asking God right now to bless your ambition, not shrink it, to bless your courage, not just your comfort, to bless your mind, to quiet the noise that has told you you're too late, too broken, too behind. I'm asking God to step into every room in your heart where fear has been living rent-free and turn the lights on so you can see clearly again. I'm asking that in the moments you're tempted to play small, a new strength rises in you. That when you go to send that email, apply for that program, start that business, have that hard conversation, you feel a calm that doesn't make sense, a confidence that is not arrogance, a determination that is gentle but unshakable. Not just for one big leap, for the daily steps, for the quiet decisions nobody sees. And I need you to hear this slowly, like it's being written on your heart. Things have a way of working out when you move with faith, when you stay with determination, and when you stand in confidence. Say that again in your mind. Things have a way of working out when you move with faith, when you stay with determination, and when you stand in confidence. Say it out loud if you can. This is not the finish line. This is the starting line of a new way of walking with God and with yourself. a new way of talking to your own soul, a new way of looking at fear, not as your ruler, but as information that you bring to God and move through together. So here's the charge. From today forward, you walk, step by step, conversation by conversation, decision by decision. You refuse to let fear hinder your ambition any longer. You let it signal where growth is, but not where you stop. You trust that you are held, you are guided, and you are capable. And as you go, remember, you are not walking alone. Just remember that I believe in you if you don't believe in yourself. But most importantly, God believes in you even more.